So, hello everyone. Good morning and welcome here to Unity of Ukaipa. Today, we are in week 2 of the Four Agreements series. The Four Agreements was written by Don Miguel Ruiz, and it's just a beautiful, simple book of wisdom. And basically, the Four Agreements help us, or the Four Agreements give us a set of positive agreements to help us reprogram and release those negative agreements that we might have picked up in our past that don't serve us and they cause us suffering. Now, an example of a negative agreement might be, oh, it's flu season. I catch that virus every year when it comes around. Oh, I have to put other people first. Even if I'm tired or hurting and don't feel well, because it's my role to take care of everybody. I have to put my needs last if I want to be a good mom. You have to go to college and then work really, really hard if you ever want to make any money. And so these are examples of us taking things personally. Okay. Those are examples of the negative agreements. I got distracted. I had something popped up on my screen. I couldn't see anything. So, technology, I love it. Last week I talked about the agreement of don't take anything personally. So today will be about don't make assumptions. But last week I talked about don't take anything personally. And I love when I talk about the agreements or I read the four agreements, because then I see them popping up in all through my life, for that week. But see, when we take things personally, we're actually putting the cause of our suffering on something out there, something in our life, right? We're not just going to our way of thinking about things and saying, hey, maybe I need to look at this differently. But no, we look out in our life and see out there things that are causing us suffering. It could be that maybe somebody's doing a big project at work and, everybody's working from home, and maybe it's a team and they need one more piece of information from one team member, but the team member won't call anybody back. And so somebody gets really frustrated because they can't move forward on their project because of this. It could be that maybe somebody was sick, and when they let their friend know, the friend was just like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And it felt like their friend didn't care that they were sick, right? Like if I'm sick, I'm like, it's okay if you bring me soup and flowers, right? So it could be that somebody worked really, really hard on a project, and the person that they were doing this project for didn't acknowledge any of the hard work, didn't say thank you, and just kind of brushed it off. Now, what happens is that we'll get upset, we will feel suffering because of how somebody out there reacted to us. And if they only would have responded to us the way we wanted them to respond, well, we would be perfectly happy right now. So that's actually taking things personally, when actually everything that other people do is all about them. It's always all about them. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to pretend everything is okay. If somebody says something to you and it stings, it's okay. It's okay to feel that stung. You don't have to ignore it. It's not about pretending that something didn't bother us. But when we're able to not take things personally, this helps us get over that sting more quickly. A few years ago, I was doing music for a local spiritual center, not this one. And later on, like after I had done music, somebody walks up to me and she says, oh, I heard you singing. I said, oh, yeah, I was having a really good time. She says, you sound just like Jewel. Well, the artist Jewel, I love her. I think she has a beautiful voice. So I was just like, oh, thank you so much. She says, yeah, I don't like Jewel. And I was like, right? It stung. It did. It stung a little. But see, I knew two things. In my opinion, Jewel is an amazing artist, and I was really honored to be compared to her. And another thing I know about myself is that I like my voice. And I love most of the songs I've written. Not all of them, but most of the songs I've written. I love my songs. There's my truth. I don't need somebody to tell me that I'm okay, because I already feel that. But it still stung a little. It still did sting a little, but I was able to get over it quicker. See, when we're taking things personally, we don't know what we don't know. You know, it could be that this person was just dumped by her partner and Jewel was their favorite artist. I mean, we just don't know, right? But if we think if we make up this story about taking something personally and we get our feelings hurt, that creates a judgment, right? We become judgmental toward that person. It causes us suffering, and that suffering is poison. And every time we are judgmental towards somebody else, we condemn, we blame, we send more poison to the source of our suffering. So we're sending poison out to them. Of course, they have the option to not receive it, right? They may not even receive it. But see, what about those times when we are the source of our own suffering, when we're judging ourselves, we're blaming ourselves, we're condemning ourselves? We don't have to take everything we think personally. So today, that was don't take anything personally. Today, we're moving into don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. I love this one too. I love them all. But you know, the funny thing about assumptions is if we make an assumption, we automatically believe that it's the truth, that it's the most truth out of anything. It's more true than anything else, that our assumption is such a fact, like it's a hard fact. And it's such a hard fact, and we're facting so much that we can actually feel it in our body. So then go back to taking things personally. Somebody does something we don't like, then we take it personally. Oh, they didn't call me when they were supposed to. They didn't bring me soup or flowers. They took all my hard work for granted. Then we make an assumption about that, about what happened. And we turn that into a drama. We create a lot of suffering in our own lives when we make assumptions and take things personally. And remember, if we are creating that suffering, if we are feeling that suffering, we're spreading a poison. That's a poison. That's a metaphysical poison. Because when we take things personally and we make assumptions, we have to make somebody else wrong. They have to be wrong because our assumption is the God's honest truth. So they didn't call me back with this work project, and that means they're thoughtless and don't care about my job. She didn't bring me soup when I was sick, so that means she doesn't love me. They didn't appreciate all my hard work, so they're just using me as a doormat, and they take me for granted. When we make an assumption and we take it personally, we are moving into judgment. That releases the poison, just like a squid releases ink. However, the bitterness of that poison, we experience that poison whether they do or not, right? They may be in a place where they're not taking things personally and they're not making assumptions. So they're just like, what poison? I don't see any poison. But meanwhile, we're swimming in it. We're swimming in it. So every time we judge, condemn, or blame, we swim in our own poison, right? Every time. For sure, we experience that. We experience the suffering that goes with that. They may not even ever know we're mad. They may not ever even know that we had our feelings hurt or that we felt like a doormat. They might not ever know. Don Miguel Ruiz, he talks about something in the Four Agreements called the mitote, which just basically means a fog of perception to keep us from seeing things as they are. We see through the lens of our own belief system and our own perception. So he says the big mitote in the human mind creates a lot of chaos, which causes us to misinterpret everything and misunderstand everything. We only see what we want to see and hear what we want to hear. We don't perceive things the way they are. See, our mind is a storyteller, right? That mitote, the fog of perception. Our mind is a storyteller, and which means it can be a troublemaker if we start buying into negative thoughts. But our mind, one of the things that it does, and it does really well, is it tells stories about the things that we experience in our environment. It tells stories. It's making up stories to fill in the blanks. And I don't know why so many of us have that need. I have a high need to have all the blanks filled in. I got to know the story behind everything, right? The other day, I was leaving the gym, 0 Point Athletics, and I'm driving through the driveway, and I can see over onto this road, Myrtlewood, and there are these red lights flashing. So I look, I observe. What I observe, 1 fire truck, 1 ambulance, 2 police cars. That was my observation. But then my mind jumped in with its stories. Now, somebody must have been texting while they were driving. Someone wasn't paying attention. Somebody must have been driving too fast. Someone must have pulled out in front of somebody without looking, right? My mind starts telling me stories. Now, the funny thing is when I drove by there wasn't even a car involved, right? I didn't see anywhere a car that it maybe was in an accident. But see, all of those are assumptions, and there's no way I could have really known what was going on unless I pulled over, got out of my car, walked up to one of the first responders and said, excuse me, I'm feeling very entitled this afternoon. Can you please tell me everything that's going on? Because I have a need to have all the blanks filled in. But I don't want to make any assumptions. I just want to know all your business, okay? Now, I want you to think for a moment about all of the situations you've ever been in where you never asked about them. You never asked, well, what is going on here? What's going on? When I first started here at Unity 2 years ago this month, happy anniversary, Deanna. When I started here 2 years ago, there was as always happens in my experiences, when a church goes through a big transition, like getting a new minister, some of the members leave. And I had already gone through this 3 times with other churches, and actually including Unity back in 2007. And what happens is that members, they're sad about losing a minister they love, and so they take a break. Now, they may feel like they can't go back, and so they find another church. Sometimes people will leave, and they'll wait a few months and call their friends, and it's like, yeah, how's things working out? Did the new minister stick, right? Before I go to the trouble to come down there and get reattached to how everything is. So there are just these different things that happen. And I already knew this. But when I started here, I hit it off with a family that had been coming here. And suddenly they were just gone. And one of the other members said, well, yeah, they started going to another Unity church. And I was just like, oh, right? Well, I could have jumped into making an assumption, but I called just to see how they were doing. And she told me, we moved, and it's like we're an hour and a half away. So we found a Unity church by where we live, and we've started going there. Now, I called her and I asked her, so, hey, what's going on? How are things? So that's how I was able to find out. I could have assumed, oh, Deanna, they didn't like you, so they're going to another Unity church. But that wasn't the case, right? But I would have caused myself suffering if I had bought into that. So I asked questions. When we start making assumptions about what people are thinking, remember, we're always going to think we are right. Our assumption, remember, is the God's honest truth as far as we can tell, right? To us, there's nothing truer than one of our assumptions, right? So we're always going to believe that these crazy stories our mind is telling us are sacred truth. So we're not going to bother to ask any questions. Now, I'm going to ask any of you all who are married, consider this. Was there ever a point in your relationship where you felt like your partner should just know what was going on in your head and you shouldn't have to tell them. They should just be able to read your mind and meet all of your needs and always just know exactly what you wanted, right? I used to think that when I first got married. When I met my husband, I was 20 years old, right? So I was this idealistic, highly romantic. And I remember the first time he couldn't read my mind. And he's like, hey, is there something going on? And I lied to him. I said, no, I'm fine. Because I wanted him to read my mind. That was my expectation. Right, so I felt like he let me down a little. That's what I thought. Yeah. That's taking it personally. That's taking it personally, right? I think a lot of young people think that, but I don't know. I know I believed it, so. My poor husband, he's not a mind reader. He's not a mind reader. Okay, so today I'm going to tell you 2 things we can start doing right away to help us stop making assumptions, right? Today. And they're gonna feel weird if you have never used them before. They will feel very weird and uncomfortable. But I promise you get used to them. I did. I was able to get used to them, and I don't care for change a lot. So anyway, I was able to do it, so I know you can too. But the first thing is get really good at asking questions. Questions are door openers. When somebody does something, if you're not clear their intention behind it, if you had your feelings hurt, ask a question about it. If somebody invited you over to help them with a project at their home, if you showed up at their house and you saw a garden hose laying in the front yard, you wouldn't assume that they called you over there to water all their plants, right? You would say, hey, here I am. What's this project you want to work on today? Right? So we ask questions. We ask questions. The second thing we do is find your voice and speak up, because you have to be able to find your voice to ask questions. Right? I want to go back to our previous example, okay? Somebody's work team, they needed one more piece of information. One employee was not calling them back. All right, don't assume. Get on the phone. Hey, we're all done with our part, and we need you to provide this one vital piece of information. What's going on? We really need you to get back to us. Okay, well, I was sick and my friend didn't bring me soup or flowers. Okay, if your feelings were really hurt, call your friend, right? And say, and I'll just speak from experience here. I'll say, my feelings were hurt when you didn't bring me soup and flowers. I was like, well, maybe they'll say something like, well, I've been around a lot of sick people and I just didn't want to leave the house, or I think I'm coming down with something, or, Deanna, I'm 2.5 hours away from your house. Get somebody else to bring you some soup. Okay, we just never know. We don't know what we don't know. We got to find our voice, and we got to ask questions. I am a minister here at a church. And something that ministers, everybody will say a minister does this all the time. They ask for volunteers and they ask for money, right? That's the thing ministers do, okay? And I've heard that over and over again. And when I first started here, I would invite people, like I was kind of crazy about it. I would just like, hey, you should volunteer. Hey, you should join the church. Hey, we'd love to see you more. I was really excited. But it's because I liked people. I like people, right? I like people. Then I found out that this one couple, they were never coming back, and they told somebody else who comes here that I was pushy. I was pushy. I'm not pushy. I just have clarity. I know what I want. I know what I want. Now, this is another benefit of finding our voice. We can help others understand where our boundaries are instead of hoping they'll read our mind. Now, obviously, this couple, they had a boundary of, don't ask me to volunteer because I'm uncomfortable telling you no. All right? Like at the grocery store. You remember when we just shopped like normal and you'd get in line and they would be like, hey, do you want to donate some money to this whatever cause? And it was kind of like, no, thank you. Oh, it's kind of like, it made me uncomfortable. Like, don't ask me. Just don't ask me. We find our own voice because it is up to us to be responsible for our own boundaries. We cannot assume that anybody's going to honor our invisible boundaries because we can't assume that they actually know about our invisible boundaries, right? So we speak up. If I come and ask you to volunteer, you can look me right in the eye and say, thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate that because I know that you ask people that you like to come volunteer. I know that. But I'm going to say no thanks for right now because I'm just not ready to be committed anywhere. And I'm totally okay with that. I'm totally good with that. Now, of course, you may speak your voice to someone else who's used to you saying yes to them all the time. And you may tell them, thanks for asking, but no thanks. And they may actually get upset with you. But this is on them. This is their problem. This is their thing that they are dealing with. But as you find your voice, you teach other people what your boundaries are. All right? So we just speak up. We speak up. So when you ask questions to get clarity about what's actually going on, and then when you speak up to maintain your own boundaries, you actually become one of the most trustworthy people on the planet because other people always know where you stand. Nobody will ever worry about saying the right thing to you. Nobody will ever think that you're going off and complaining about how pushy you are. Right? All right. By not taking things personally and by not making assumptions, we are automatically bringing more clarity into our lives, right? When we live our lives with more clarity, we are greatly empowered. We're more empowered creators in our life. And that's what we came here to be. We came here to call forth a powerful creative being that we actually are. That's who we are inside the skin and surrounding us. We're swimming in a sea of us, of this creative force. But we get clarity on that and we start expressing our true self. That's how we are creating heaven on earth. That's how we're doing it, with clarity. So until next time, remember that you are divinely designed to be doing all of this stuff. You are the hands and the heart of God in this world, and everything you do, you are blessed, and so it is. Thank you.